I would like to introduce to you Professor Dr. Luis Cesar Ribas from Unesp Botucatu. He's a forest engineering. He has a master's degree in forest engineering concerning economy and forest policy at Federal University of Paraná, and holds a PhD in production engineering from University of São Paulo. He has also a postdoc in environmental service payment and sustainable market condition at University of Washington, USA. He collaborated as technical assistant for 16 years with the Environmental Public Prosecutor Office of the São Paulo State. His field of expertise encompasses technical environmental analysis, environmental impacts, anthropic alteration of the environment, sustainability, and environmental damage. Currently, he is assistant professor at São Paulo State University, coordinating the group of study and research in integrated management system applied to the agricultural sector. Professor, thank you very much for coming. It's all yours.
Good evening, good afternoon. In despite I'm a teacher since the 1990, is my first time that I will give a speech in English. And I ask you, apologize if I have some mistakes during my presentation, okay? Well, I am a forest engineer, and I have this kind of approach in all my jobs. And when I was invited to come here, I thought that if I try to make my presentation with this forestry point of view, maybe it would be very interesting for us, for you, né? And we will try to do this, okay? Well, next. Sorry. Okay. Well, I will go that side. Well, Bioenergy within a past, present, and future point of view. Why Brazil? For answer this question, I thought that it is very interesting to do a historic forestry perspective. For instance, we needed to start from 1965 with the import substitution process. I think that you know about this theme. Is a economic point of view. Do you know this process? Is do you know? No? Now we will start a new growth model with Michel Temer, named Avança Brasil. Do you know this? And in this, we have this another kind of economic model with Lula and Dilma, Programa de Aceleração do Crescimento, PAC. And in this time, in 6 years, we have a model of growth named import substitution process. In fact, it is some kinds of activities that we substitute the importation, and we needed to try to produce here in Brazil. In this time, we choose the forest sector, and we will need to talk about this a few ago. This is the first step. This is the second step, environment wave, Eco 92. Now we have Paris Agreement, and in the present we have another process, named the first perspective again. In other words, we start our presentation with forest sector, and we will start and we will finish this presentation with forest sector again. It's a cycle. But for this presentation, we need some assumptions. Economic policy is the same thing with the same thing that political policy. We need to think in economic growth, income share, economic process stability, employment, and health generation. Is the first assumption. The second, we need two concepts: policy, that is public business management, purpose to try to deal with the public business, and politics is a political action of the PSDB, PMDB, then this is another concept that we need. And finally, we need some criteria: efficiency, efficacy, equity, permanence, administrative costs, incentives for maximum effort, public approval, and minimal interference in private decision. Is a suggestion, not necessary is the unique criteria. Discussion. 60 years with the process of import substitution. First sector was one of the economic segments selected to take part of this Brazilian growth process model. In that time, we imported paper and pulp, and we needed to start to produce paper and pulp in Brazil. In that time, we create several forestry colleges and forestry researches. And in that time, we had a code, a legislation, named the new forestry code, 65. And now, 2012, we have another policy named the new law, the new forestry law. In other words, we have in that 2 times the forest sector with basis with all this team linked with forestry researches, natural researches, and bioenergy, biomass, and bioenergy. In that time, 65, we created 2 figures, very important, under the environment point of view, named the permanent preservation areas and legal reserve areas. But in that time, 60 years, we have a powerful fiscal instrument that is partial federal tax inception, both people and companies, in order to invest in forestry projects to produce raw material, wood, and in good Portuguese, incentivos fiscais. We have in that time tax inception to put our taxes in forestry investment. Is a very good opportunity to investment. And because of this economical instrument, we have a big evolution of the woods, of the forest in our country. For instance, eucalypto e pinus, exotic species in our country. Why? Because these two species is one of the best species to produce paper and pulp, long fiber and short fiber. This is in the 60 years, eucalypto and pinus. I would like to ask you to pay attention in one aspect. We started before with pinus and eucalypto, and now we have these two species again to support to another programs, another two public policies or environment policies, namely Política Nacional de Florestas e Programa Nacional de Biocombustíveis Florestais. These two programs is in this time being discussed in Congress Nacional, National Congress. In that time, in 60 years, we also stimulate another sector, Brazilian seal sector. Why? Because eucalypto could substitute mineral charcoal. Eucalypto is vegetable charcoal. It is a very good thing under the environment point of view, because vegetable charcoal is, causes less pollution than mineral charcoal. And this is a very strong energetic substitution process. Mineral charcoal and vegetable charcoal. This is in 60 years. I would like to ask to pay attention in these times. Outcomes of this first step: good, reduction of environment pollution, and bad. Important forest instruments in the new forest code have not been attended by the rural proprietors since the 60 years until now. We created these two figures in 60 years, and until now we don't oblige or don't put in the reality these instruments. In the 80 years decade, we eliminated the forest subsidies. We don't have more tax to put in the forests, and in that same time we create Política Nacional do Meio Ambiente, and in this time we started the second step, the environment wave, 90 years decade, mainly after Eco 92. The new focus for the forest sector, the sustainable point of view, clean development mechanism, share but different responsibilities, mainly in developing countries. Is another kind of political point of view. Not only under the environment point of view, but also under the political point of view. Developed countries against developed countries. This time, the main aspects that brought the first sector to the national, international scenarios again were climate change, social, economic, environment point of view. But what kind of climate changes? Climate changes mitigation. Do you know about this? Mitigation is very different from reduction, elimination, mitigation. Climate change mitigation, the attitude of European countries, substitution of fossil fuels, environment services and environment assessments, ready mechanisms, mainly in developing country, participation of forest of the carbon market purpose. This is very interesting instrument, and it's very funny not, because Brazil don't agree with this kind of purpose, and it ended national determinated contributions. These 4 elements under world front, mainly Paris Agreement. And under the national point of view, Brazil, we have another legal instruments, named the Programa Nacional de Florestas, New Forestry Law, and Plano Nacional de Biocombustíveis Florestais. I would like to ask to pay attention in the RED concept. We start with the concept of RED. Is only the first evaluation, only in developing countries. Before we modify this concept to RED Plus, because we include sustainable forest management plus carbon stock increasing. And now we have RED Plus, que é o RED Plus agriculture, appropriate use of land, and carbon stock increase, again, only in developing country forest. We have this situation with the Amazon discussion. Amazon region, what kind of a future we want for this region? Agriculture use, preservation use, and we have this kind of problem in our country. With relation of the CO2 emission in the Brazilian point of view, we have this kind of situation, the kinds of production of CO2 in Brazil. LULUFIT, that is land use change and forest activity, with 78%. Energy, 18%. Industrial process, and about the biomes, the most important is the Amazon biome, and cerrados, Brazilian savades, and another biomes. For instance, Mata Atlântica. So we have, under this kind of point of view, the first scenario in focus. Why? LULUFIT, Amazon biome. Is the own or the main characteristics of the Brazilian conditions different from another countries. For instance, United States. United States, we have another situation. We have this kind of situation of CO2 emission. Coal, natural gas, nuclear, and others. And we have this kind of situation. Mainly coal, and I don't know if you are following the facts in United States after the Donald Trump. He opens the frontiers of the coal industry in the United States. About the Brasilia INDC, we have this kind of proposal. Consumption of biofuels, increase the Brazilian energy matrix, participation of 18%, enforcement of forestry and land use change legislation, zero illegal deforestation, compensation for greenhouse emission by illegal deforestation, and forest restoration of 12 million of hectares. Again, the forestry sector in evidence in Brazilian situation. In despite of this discussion, we have the government policies and action linked to climate change under the Paris Agreement point of view is something so many complex because involve social, economic, environment measures that depend strongly by legal support. In any kind of world or country, we need this legal support. We see this in Brazilian situation. Concluding remarks. Well, finally, in the front of this screen, why Brazil? And I answer with another question, because why not Brazil? We have all the necessary competition conditions for help the world climate change mitigation process, and we need effective and efficient governance conditions in terms of policy and politics. For instance, what kind of reality we are living now in Brazil? Do you know about the natural reserve of copper and associated mining research? Henka?
Where does Brazil stand on the forestry side regarding carbon sequestration and mitigation to reach the estimated levels for carbon reduction emissions?
Your name is?
Maria.
Maria. It's very difficult to follow all the happenings in this kind of words, because the news, the information is very restricted. I don't know very well what is happening about the Paris Agreement, but I would like to discuss with you and with the another people some things very interesting. The main part of carbon is not in the trees, is in the soil, carbon in the soil, and the proportion is very high. In my opinion, we need to put investment not in forestry, or not only in forestry, but in the carbon in the soil, and this have a very consequence, very important for our country, because the carbon in soil is natural fertility, and we help the familiar properties, familiar agricultures. We help all the conditions, natural conditions, not only forestry. And when I saw or I see another things, for instance, with Henka, with another natural areas in Amazon that this actual government is trying to reduce, I can imagine that we don't have a word with the mitigation. We have we are worried with another things, not only the carbon stock in forests, and this is very difficult to discuss. But in my opinion, we are trying to do something not very right. We prefer to put investment in carbon in the soil, not in the forest. And I am forest engineer. And I am a forest engineer. Why? Because wood is a natural resource. This is wood. This is wood, this is wood. Wood is for use. Not only wood, water, you use water, all the natural resources. But we need to do a good use of natural resources, is my opinion. Okay?
I have one. Concerning that we are misunderstood about our legislation because we don't receive real information through our media channels, for example. We are misunderstood. We don't have the real concept or the reality of what's going on. And I always listen, oh, we don't have a policy, a very efficient policy because politicians are not concerned about that. On the other hand, some people says that no, in fact, we have good policy, but we are not executing them properly. Another one says, no, we are trying to execute, we have good policies, but we have a huge country, so it's almost impossible to handle this issue that is deforestation and this kind of problems that we are facing nowadays. What is your opinion about a person who truly knows what we are talking about? We are not going to have misconceptions about what we are talking. What is your opinion?
In my opinion, we are using wrong instruments. Né? For instance, né? In Botucatu, we are discussing about solid waste. Né? We have a problem with garbage. Né? And the human being have a behavior to try command and control instruments. Do you know this? For instance, to resolve the problem of the garbage and solid waste in Botucatu, the people wants to use punishment, cameras to watch what is happening, and taxes, and I don't know in Portuguese, multa, sanctions, economic sanctions. But nobody talked that garbage and waste solid is a problem of the society. For instance, if you have a problem in our house and need to break a wall, we will produce a big quantity of solid waste. But why? Or what I can do with this? I am a citizen. I need to work. I need to take care of my family. I don't have a capability to eliminate this problem. This is not my problem. This is problem of the government. And I think that the government will need to use economic instruments. For instance, plastic. Bottle of plastic. If you try marketing with supermarkets, the people change in the supermarkets the plastic bottle with coupons to change for for food. We start another kind of policy and another kind of behavior of the society, and this can or could create also employments for the people to live with this kind of services. And in my opinion, we are choosing wrong instruments to try to reduce our environmental problems. And I can tell about zillions or millions of kind of examples. But if you need to try to do different, I think that we will have another solution. For instance, when we try to invest in carbon in the soil, we don't eliminate the forest alternative, because to use or to capture carbon in the soil, we also need forests. We need plantations, we need food, we need animals, we need all the kinds of elements of the ecosystem. And in my opinion, we need to choose and to use another kind of instruments. Do you understand?
Yes, I understood. I think that you said, correct myself, I'm wrong, that we have good policies. We are trying to execute. No, we have our legislation. We are trying to execute this. We also have a huge country, but you need to do it in a clever way. You need to think differently than we are trying to do now.
I don't know if you pay attention, but when I saw, or when I told about assumptions, I used the 3 elements, criteria of public policies. And what you are doing, what you are saying is this kind of criteria. We need simple policies. We need simple outcomes. Né? And we are using bad instruments in very complex to fiscalize, to implement. Né? This is our problem, because we are using only command control. Are you married? Do you have children? I use this kind of example. For instance, if you have 2 minutes. Once I slept, and my wife was in the room watching TV very early in on the Sunday. And I asked for my wife, why you are woke up? Né? And my wife told me, your daughter still come to home, né? Very early. And I am father. Né? We only think, or only thought in bad things. Né? Not, oh, she is safe, she is in a party. We saw that he kidnapping, she was killed, he stole the car. Né? And I was taught what I will do in my life when my daughter suddenly opened the door and entered in the room very silent. Né? And I would like to jump in her neck and kill her, né? Because it's terrible, né? It's a nightmare. But I resolved to change my attitude. I asked to her sit down and talk with her. Do you need to go? No. Do you want to go to the party? Yes? Yes. Do you want to have freedom? Yes? Yes. Do you want to use my credit card? Yes? Yes. In that way, not. You need to change your behavior. You need to come to house early. We need to call out to your mother for me. And I try to use another kind of instrument, not punishment, but incentive her to change her behavior. And this fixed. Né? She changed his behavior. And I think that something similar we needed to do with environment situations. We needed to change the behavior of the rural properties, né? But not with punishment, with stimulations. Né? And there are several examples that we need to do this. For instance, payments for environment services. Né? But why? You live in Campinas. You have a problem with water. Né? And water is produced in rural areas. And the owners of these areas could have money to help you have a good quality and quantity of water. In United States, New York, Houston River, né? This is an example. The people receive money, but this is a kind of a compensation. And I don't know if I am right, but we cannot think that compensation is the same of prostitution né? Em português, né? Nós não podemos confundir compensação ambiental com prostituição ambiental, né? Porque se você, if you don't take care, the people only do something if you pay for this, and this is a bad behavior too.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. It was very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.